Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special MTN Roundtable conversation for 16 Days of Activism. I'm your host, Alexa Saul, a proud MTNer and also founder of the I Am Collective. And today we are leaning into a theme that feels both deeply personal and profoundly urgent. I am because we are women leading in Africa's digital future with safety, empathy, and courage. And as we gather, the numbers remind us why this conversation matters. Across Africa, over 40% of women experience gender-based violence in their lifetime. And in South Africa, femicide rates remain 5 times higher than the global average. Online, the picture unfortunately isn't any softer. 1 in 3 women will face digital harassment, stalking, or abuse. And these are not just statistics. They reflect our mothers, our sisters, our daughters, our colleagues, and our friends. But today is also about possibility, not just the outcome we see in the statistics. Because when women are safely connected, they don't just participate, they lead. And with them, communities will rise. And MTN, as a tech company serving more than 300 million people, has such a crucial role in shaping safe, dignified digital spaces. And so today, I'm so privileged to be joined by 4 phenomenal leaders who are driving this agenda forward with empathy, with grace, with courage, and with action. And I'd like to start the conversation with Yolanda Cuba, who is the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of MTN South Africa. Yolanda, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
It's such a pleasure. You've often spoken about people first leadership that's anchored in empathy, accountability, and humanity. And MTN's 2025 GBV campaign, Control Alt Delete, really embodies that, as it's about creating physical and digital safe spaces while enabling healing and empowering women through tools like the Skills Academy. In your view, what does leading with courage and care look like in the digital world? And what has shaped your belief that safety, including digital safety, is actually a business imperative?
Yeah, I guess it starts with actually believing that leadership is about people first, right? You do not lead in a vacuum, right? And therefore, for me, it's really then saying, how do we help people show up the best version of themselves? And safety and trust are a core component of that. And whether you're living in a digital space or in the physical world, the first thing we have to do is make sure that we actually allow people to actually be their best selves, right? Be authentically themselves. And you cannot be authentically yourself if you're feeling threatened, if you're feeling unsafe, right? And that for me is really what this whole kind of notion that says, how do we allow people to live with courage and with care? What does it mean? It means we allow people to have dignity in how they show up. And then we say, how do we make sure that physically we actually protect their environment in order for them to actually be able to grow emotionally and be emotionally safe? How do we create digitally safe spaces for them to actually be able to actually flourish? The digital space by its very nature, right? The internet world, the 4IR and so on, is about accelerating growth. It is not about actually making people feel inferior. Right now, I feel like women are not getting the best end of the stick, because we feel more kind of vulnerable out there. When you put yourself out there, you actually do see how people are getting bullied, cyberbullied, and so on. And this is really where MTN has said we want to step in. The controlled alt heal kind of process is really around actually saying, how do we create this environment that allows women to actually flourish? And for me, I mean, being part of this conversation is really to encourage women and everyone else, because it's not just women we're talking to our entire population, right? Which includes men, that says actually safe spaces for women are not an option anymore. The safety is not an optional thing. In business, it is a business imperative. When people feel safe, they trust, they perform, and they grow.
If you really framed really beautifully around why this is an important conversation for MTN to lead. In your view, I mean, how do you see digital empowerment changing the trajectory for women and girls? I mean, if we get this right, and as you say, sometimes women are feeling vulnerable in this digital space, and we know that technology is not unsafe. I think used correctly, it's the most empowering tool that we have. How do you see us changing the trajectory for women and girls through digital empowerment.
By the way, what is exciting for me is kind of looking at the real stats in the physical world, right? When I look at the stats, is we have more women, for example, in South Africa, actually graduating than male in universities today, in tertiary institutions today, right? And then I'm saying if we can provide that level of safety that we're providing in the universities, now in the digital space, we will see the same kind of acceleration. We will not be talking about kind of this gender disparity that we're actually seeing and this asymmetry of growth. We'd be talking about not an empowered woman, but a formidable woman. And so for me, really, the story is really saying, how do we create spaces for women to flourish in all environments? Because the stats that we're looking at today are telling us actually that women are succeeding when they are provided with opportunities and also with safe environments in which they can actually translate what they're able to do. I think we will have more women innovators once we actually create the ecosystem for women to be able to flourish. I think we will actually have more people sitting in the corridors of power once we allow that to happen. I mean, I'm looking forward to me not talking about George Bezos anymore, right? Or Bill Gates or anyone else like that. You know, I want to talk more about Indra Nooy and all these other people that are really making and shaking the world, but also in the tech environment now, not just in our traditional kind of business sense.
That's really, really insightful. And you're right, it does feel like there is this new change coming along where we're becoming more inclusive and having a much broader conversation with a wider group of stakeholders on how we can address digital empowerment.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to an empowered woman and a skilled woman
Yeah,
actually going out there and making things happen, man.
100%. Because like we know, when a woman is empowered, communities rise.
That's it.
Thank you, Yolanda. That was so insightful and really does give us so much to reflect on. And it also really just gives us a great springboard to introduce our next speaker, Marina Madale, who, as MTN's Executive for Sustainability and Shared Value, in the Group Sustainability and Corporate Affairs Division. Marina, your work at the group really sits at the intersection not only of culture and sustainability, but also social impact. And as Yolanda has framed, digital safety is an imperative. It's no longer nice to have, especially with our life increasingly becoming online. It's actually becoming more of a human rights issue. Why is it important that MTN stands publicly against GBV, including all its digital forms?
Thanks, Alexis, for having me. I think it's such a powerful conversation and a point of reflection. So I think first and foremost, as MTN, we believe that everyone deserves the benefits of a modern connected life. That means a notion of inclusion, a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose. And to be able to achieve that, we want to create an environment where our organization reflects what society looks like. So we're all for the empowerment of women within the organization, within broader society, and we do a lot of work on both sides to ensure that women can rise and come to the forefront. What I think is interesting, and we simply believe, like Yolanda has already alluded, that it makes business sense. If you actually look at the economy, you look at profitable companies, there's a business case for ensuring that businesses are as diverse as possible and that there's significant value in it. Now, fast forward to gender-based violence, it honestly is a continental crisis. We see it taking different shapes, and quite recently, I was speaking to our colleagues in Ghana, and the conversation that was being had there was around, the important role of raising the next generation of men that create the environment where women can speak. You look at South Africa, and then you look at the context and the conversations that are being had here. You actually see that it actually not only hurts society, but it hurts our economy. And I think there's an estimation that between 1 to 2% of the GDP in these different countries are impacted through gender-based violence. Now, very unique that UN had selected the theme of digital gender violence, because what you're seeing is that it's no longer remaining within the physical form. It's now evolving into the online space. You're now having women being abused, women being catfished, and so forth. So it's evolving. But I think one of the things that's not spoken enough about is the power of technology to both assist in the physical form, making sure that you zero rate websites and people can easily access helplines and the likes. And also, obviously, the I Am Collective type of work that's being done around building tech platforms to enable women to seek and go to places to seek help. And then at the same time, creating those same kind of powerful online tools to enable people to remain safe online. So technology is actually the common denominator and an absolute force for good.
In terms of the partnership with the Internet Watch Foundation, how do you see partnerships like this and with the I Am Collective reinforcing the MTN values?
Thank you. And I think the biggest thing when we're an organization as the size of MTN is to find partners that have similar values to ours, that believe in the power of technology and the power that connectivity can also bring. So I think for us, we look for like-minded partners. So I think, firstly, very ironic, MTN has had a partnership with Internet Watch Foundation, which seeks to remove child sexual abuse material completely off our network. So we actually take and block down sites every single day, 365 days a year, because for us, we want, everyone, including women and young girls, to feel safe online. And that's part of what we're doing there with IWF. In just speaking to IWF, and we asked, but we're talking about, gender-based violence, and where's the statistics coming from? And they said majority of the child sexual abuse cases they see is young girls and women. So that shows that, you need to actually protect them more. And then secondly, as we start to look at other partnerships, 1 billion rising in Eswatini, I Am Collective, it's about working with organizations that specialize in this area and that we can bring the power of technology and partner together to amplify the impact. And I think for me, I Am Collective particularly is really powerful, because not only do we need to speak about the reality of what's happening, the technology assistance, but it's also about driving healing. And a lot of platforms speak about what you do when to try and prevent. A lot of platforms try and speak about when it's happened, but not a lot speak about the fact that you want to that individuals like yourself, Alexis, who's been through this, need support to heal, to recover, to rebuild their lives, to upskill themselves. Because one of the big aspects is that you actually find that women don't leave abusive relationships, or their hesitation to do so is a lack of economic empowerment. So now imagine the taking opportunities like leveraging the Skills Academy for them to upskills themselves, to feel empowered, to make the decision to walk away of a type of relationship that is not serving them or their families. So I think the power of working with organizations like this is that you're the experts, and the combined effort of bringing the power of technology amplifies the amount of people that we can reach.
That's phenomenal, Marina. And I think to have a brand like MTN really taking a systemic view at GBV, because there are so many different components to it. And you're right, economic abuse is a significant lever that does keep women sitting in the same situation. And so to know that you're not only looking at skills empowerment, but also the healing and how technology just like cuts through all of that is really, really exciting, because I think the possibility at the end of that journey is where the magic and our healing sits. So thank you so much for framing all that MTN is doing in this space, which brings us to our next speaker, Tumi Chamayo, who is the MTN's Chief Enterprise Business Officer, and who works very, very closely with a variety of enterprises, governments, and partners across the country. Tumi, you would often see how technology can not only predict detect, or potentially even harm. As a leader in our enterprise business, what opportunities have you seen for tech-enabled solutions that is able to not only protect but also empower women?
So thank you for that, Alexis, and thank you for having us on this podcast. It's really an important topic, and it's also an economic topic. I think we understand the social reasons around why it needs to be done, but this is pure economic sense. Africa is the youngest continent on this planet, and we are having the first people having their first digital encounter on their mobile devices. So we are having a digital first economy. And so it is important that, and part and parcel to accelerating inclusion, that we also have to accelerate also the safety component of that. So now, if we start taking behaviors of the physical into the digital world, we can understand that we're creating a big problem. The other economic point that we need to understand is that with every 10% of people that are connected, you're increasing the GDP by 1%. And again, half of those people that are being included are women. So women, when they start to participate and engage in the digital tools, they're able to not only become included, but they become empowered. They get access to certain things like learning. They get access to finance skills. They get access to the digital marketplaces. They get access to a digital community. So what helps them in terms of growing those businesses that they run is the feeling of safety. Now, think about a grandmother who is out in the rural areas and her first encounter of inclusion is through the digital lens, but that digital lens is not really safe. So, as Marina highlighted, it is important for companies such as ourselves who believe in the transformative power of technology to, as we're designing and we're implementing these solutions, that we're doing them in a very responsible way to amplify safety, amplify that access, and also the opportunity that is really behind that. So solutions such as that we're seeing, AI now is the new, let's say, equalizer. So AI is also creating the digital divide. So what is important there is that we start using not only ourselves, right? Ourselves, our partners, our customers also, that they start embracing the powers of AI, of digital ID, of data tools to predict safety and to encourage safety within the ecosystem and the clients that they serve.
Thank you, Tumi, for that great summary, just to position the opportunity that tech-enabled solutions provides us. Beyond the solutions that's available, any thoughts around how enterprise customers can integrate digital well-being and safety into their overarching business models?
Thank you for that question. And really, this is becoming, again, another question around the ecosystem. I think we as MTN are really well positioned from an infrastructure play, from a digital play in terms of the solutions. But we also believe in the power of co-creation. Now, the power of co-creation really comes back in terms of the design. How are we designing? Design schools all over the world, they will talk with regards to understanding the needs of the customers, understanding their fears, understanding their vulnerabilities. And I think our ecosystem across the continent gives us a really amazing vantage points, and we are able to become a trusted advisor to them with regards to some of those designs. So I think the partnering with like-minded organizations with the right value is, for instance, the first step. I think the second step is really just around designing responsibly, ensuring inclusion. AI right now globally is being driven and it's been designed by individuals with a certain mindset, with a certain profile. So it is important that when we are also teaching these AI tools, that we're including people from all sorts of different walks of life so that we can understand when a gogo from a township says, this makes me fearful, what does that mean? So I think that inclusion is beyond just the using, but also in the design. And then obviously in the utilization of certain tools that are tried and tested, there's no need for everyone to start everything from scratch. So how do we use AI? How do we use digital ID? How do we use data to ensure that we are detecting risks? We are connecting people at a much more deeper, fundamental, value-based, and also a reaction-based, and we're making sure that the infrastructures that they're developing, whether it's banking, whether it's online. I mean, there's lots of solutions now, online marketplaces. We're making sure that they're safe, and that we are taking feedback consistently. And also from a security perspective, that we share the securities. So we're having solutions all over. Different organizations are doing this individually, such as security. Security is being targeted by each and every single individual. How do we bring that to become a much more inclusive space where we can share ideas, and also at that same time taking it back in the loop with regards to how do we ensure that the design at the beginning is able to do design efficiently for good. Technology for good is when we are designing responsibly to amplify safety, access, and opportunity.
Thank you. That was really a powerful summation and also just insights on the level and the depths in which MTN is really building a safer ecosystem for the communities that it serves. And it's wonderful to witness how you really are truly taking it from the user's perspective in order to inform the outcomes of these solutions. So thank you to me so much for your input. Which now brings us to our final speaker, Tebogo Manenche, who is the Chief Human Resources Officer. Welcome, Tebogo. It's so good to have you here. Your lens is one of people, and people first leadership is definitely becoming a defining quality for modern organizations. In light of everything that we've spoken about today, please can you share with us how MTN is embedding digital safety and well-being into the employee experience?
Thank you, Alexia, and really thank you for the opportunity to be part of this very important conversation. I think some of the statistics that we've heard earlier on from yourself and Yolanda are really sobering. And I guess for me, these are not just numbers. They represent lives, families, and possibly futures that have been shattered by violence. So this is a topic that's really, really close to my heart. Yes, I think technology is transforming how we work as businesses, but I think leadership remains deeply human. And people first leadership means using digital tools to amplify that human potential and not necessarily diminishing it. And I think sometimes we think about technology, we're thinking it's a replacement process, it's replacing humans. At MTN, what we are very focused on is equipping our leaders to combine what I would call digital fluency with emotional intelligence. We've got programs that are really focused on how do we build and harness that muscle around empathy, inclusion, and adaptability, ensuring that as we digitize, we never lose sight of the human connection that actually drives performance and well-being. Because I believe when leaders put people first, they create then environments where respect and safety thrive, and where things like gender-based violence really has no place. And as we embrace this digital transformation, I think it's important to recognize our responsibility to protect our people, not just the data, but their well-being as well. So we at MTN, really our safety focus goes very, very well beyond security, because in this hyper connected world, constantly being connected leads to a lot of stress, sometimes a lot of burnout. And our focus is promoting digital well-being through practices such as flexible work policies, mental health support through our comprehensive employee support program. So we are mindful that people have a lot of information to work with, but also they are exposed as they work through these digital platforms, and therefore we are mindful in terms of how we support through the various initiatives in the organization.
In terms of culture, because they always say culture eats strategy for breakfast. What would you say is the role that an organizational culture plays in actually preventing GBV and supporting survivors and creating a safe space for employees?
Look, culture for me is the invisible force that really shapes how we do things in the workplace and how we actually treat each other, how people are treated in the organization. And in our business, our values are the anchor of the culture that we want to build. And I'll highlight the three values that are really talks to those topics very well. We talk about leading with care. We talk about acting with inclusion and serving with respect. These core values guide us to act with empathy and accountability, especially from a leadership perspective. We have a zero tolerance for any forms of harassment or violence in the workplace. But we also are clear that policies alone are not enough. If we want to build a culture of psychological safety that I think it was spoken about earlier on, where employees feel empowered to speak up without fear. So over and above just having the policies and our stance on, which is very clear around harassment, which is zero tolerance, we have very clear reporting mechanisms where people understand how to report some of the challenges they may face as far as harassment or violence in the workplace is concerned. And we're making sure that it's a multitude of reporting mechanisms where people can feel that their confidentiality is also safeguarded, that they can feel empowered to speak up without any fear. We drive a lot of continuous education and awareness in the business. And this is very important because it puts topics of, sexual harassment, bullying in the workplace as part of the mainstream conversations in the organization, where people are comfortable to actually ask questions, where leaders lead, from the front in terms of these topics, where we create a platform where conversations can be held quite openly. And also we create a space where people feel that when they raise issues, they actually get dealt with. And we make a point of communicating some of the consequences or the actions that we've taken. And that for me is very important because that level of transparency creates trust, creates belief in the processes that we put in place in the workplace. And of course, through partnerships like this, we partner with organizations who are focused, like yourselves, who are focused on these kind of topics. It creates again another platforms where conversations and stories can be told about what the challenges, but also what are we doing about those challenges. So we are really taking a bold step to create a workplace and a society where dignity and respect are non-negotiable.
Thank you for that, Boho, and just thank you, I think, to all the leaders that's in this digital room right now. A clear reflection on MTN's organizational culture and commitment to creating safe spaces for the communities that they serve, because you were looking at it from so many different lenses, all important and needed lenses. And so thank you for your commitment to helping all of us create safe spaces for our next generation. Before I close, I just really want to share reflection as my role as the founder of the I Am Collective, which is really created to give people a safe space to heal, to reconnect with themselves, and rebuild the confidence through guided reflection and storytelling. I think every word that was spoken by you as our leaders and our speakers today, which is around people first leadership, creating psychological safety, responsible technology, women empowerment, and as Jimmy was touching on how we build solutions to serve. This is really where all our solutions, all of ideas come together. A simple idea, people feel seen, supported, and safe, and this is how we rise through education. And so it's more than just a digital tool that we're creating. It's really a movement that mobilizes individuals, families, workplaces to create safer spaces through their own self-rehabilitation and their own self-healing, so that if I am safe, I can create a safe space for someone else, which is really an embodiment of all of what we're trying to create. So thank you so much for this time, Yolanda, Marina, Tumi, Teboho, for your honesty, for your leadership. I think if I can summarize all of your reflections, that safety is not just an add-on. It's essential, it's foundational. To trust with dignity, your leadership, your innovation, performance, it's really all coming together. digital empowerment only really matters when women feel safe enough to show up, to speak up, and to lead. And I think you've demonstrated commitment to the cause, from infrastructure to culture to partnerships, to demonstrate how technology can be a force for good, a force for healing, and a force for independence. So as we mark 16 days of activism, may we remember that ending violence online and offline, it's not just a campaign. And you've absolutely shown that you have a deep commitment to evolving how society can show up. Because as we know, when women rise, communities rise with them. So thank you for your leadership in the cause. Any closing comments, thoughts before we close out the conversation?
Yeah, maybe from my side, from an MTN perspective, right? If I look at kind of the stats, right? 117 women getting raped every day, 15 women actually being killed every single day, more than 51% of the youth getting cyberbullied every day. MTN is just but a microcosm of the community that it serves. And as a company, we cannot sit by, because we do get these questions, why does MTN get involved in some of these things? It's because as a company, as a responsible corporate, we cannot sit by while there is literally dirt all around us and be this kind of hope or beacon as the only one, right? And so for us, we actually have to be part of the solution. And I love what we are doing as MTN. When we say everyone deserves the benefit of a modern connected life, we don't say that just by selling you more data, we are actually giving you a modern connected life. We've said when there is a big problem like this one that is so endemic in the communities that we serve, and it's right across the entire continent, right? Is that firstly, we're looking at it and saying, how do we help people first feel safe with our technology? And we actually have partnered actively for many years now around online safety for children, and also going out there, and Marina actually spoke to this, and going out there and making it safe for people to actually be online. The second thing we're doing, we're saying there are times when things go wrong, and that's how the I Am Collective kind of process actually comes in, and saying it's about healing, right? How do we become part of the solution around healing, not just for the individual, for their families, for their friends, because healing is a group project. It is not an individual journey. So for me, that's actually important. And the last element of how we've actually looked at it is saying, how do we empower? Right. So it's not enough just to say, okay, I'll help with the healing. I'll help with this. It's actually, we say, how do we provide safety? By the way, around safety, we also partnered with places like Khuseleka as well, right? Khuseleka Center, where we actually provide those safe spaces as well, physical spaces, where we're able to actually provide spaces for people to actually come together and feel safe and be actually in a place, some form of haven of safety, right? So we've got the safety thing, we've got the healing. And then now the last element is around empowerment. And we've invested in the digital academy to empower women, right? And that's important, that actually we just don't stop somewhere in the middle. We actually have to make this an ecosystem such that the woman is reintegrated again and feel safe again to actually add meaningfully in the business or in their society, right? Because what we're seeing more of right now is that we are all about building business cases for our businesses and our performance. And right now we're at a point where we're seeing that actually the values case that we keep on talking about, right, actually lives together with the business case. And this is the sweet spot that every business needs to find itself in. And as MTN, we're standing up and saying, we want to be actually counted. For us, this is not a campaign. GBV is not a campaign. It's something that we live every single day, every single year. And if you look at our track record with partnering with different NGOs, with partnering with even the UN and others to say, how do we make this work? How do we create these environments that says, actually, this is not just about a cost, but actually is an investment. How do we empower women such that they become the ripple effects for future generations and for economic growth. And that actually GBV does have an economic cost, right? And that we can't ignore that anymore. We are standing on the side in history where we're saying enough is enough. And we actually have to be counted, not just to stop this, but also to participate in the solution for the long term.
Pambili.
Yeah.
Wow.
I wasn't expecting that, to me.
Yeah. And I guess, Yolanda, we need to bring the men with. I think we need active participation from all
100%.
men.
100%. We need participation from all of society, right? I mean, the gender-based violence thing. I mean, I have someone close to me who's writing about boys and the plight of boys and how boys are getting left behind, and the problem that this creates for society overall, right? And that actually this is an end game. In fact, I didn't know that there's a word such as we hear a lot about femicide, but there's androcide, right? And on androcide, there's more men actually being killed by other men rather than anything else. But that's not the point. For me, is the fact that people are getting killed, right? However, women are the ones that are more vulnerable because they cannot defend themselves out of some of these situations. It's intimate partners that are actually committing these kind of atrocities against women, against children. It's their family members and so on, and it's friends, acquaintances. And now, if you cannot be safe in an environment that is meant to provide you safety, then we are not going to get the South Africa that we want. And indeed, we are not going to also get the Africa that we deserve.
You're so right. I've done quite a lot of work with the Life Helpline, and very interesting. I was like, "What's your emerging statistics?" And they said there are more men phoning in asking for help than women, and a lot of it can be from economic abuse, emotional abuse, and the likes. But I think the reality, when you look, I've also spoken with Africa Rising and a few others on the ground. They're actually speaking about young girls going missing in the community with community members. So the one girl's body literally was in someone's house, and he volunteered to go look around the neighborhood. It was only later on that when they were doubling back through which houses have they covered, they realized they hadn't covered that house. And then they discovered that. So it's happening in our homes, in our communities. It's not somewhere else. And I don't know what it is. I don't know how we're going to fix the social ills of poverty, unemployment, all the things that make someone feel that they have the right to do so, and I think there's a long way to go. And like I was saying, our country needs healing, and the continent needs healing. We need to drive healing and meaningful conversations and solutions for both boys, girls, women, men, and so forth.
I just wanted to add one last bit. I think Yolanda touched on it. I mean, the boy child matters. The value system matters. We had ancient structures, indigenous structures that were helping to raise the boy as well as the girl. I think those have become lost. And I think it's about to move forward, we also have to move backwards. We need to understand what were some of the reasons some of those practices were in place that, with modernization, we've thrown away a lot. So I think we need to go back and replace and reignite back the sacred masculinity as well as the sacred femininity back into society. And when you marry values, indigenous values, with the promise of technology and digital inclusion, then you start having a recipe that is designed for us.
Wow, that was so beautifully said. Thank you so much for that. And it's so true. We always say hurt people, and if you look at the statistics around GBV, it's clear that there is our masculine counterparts are going through as much. And I think these kinds of platforms do create the opportunity to have a conversation that really looks at the issue from both perspectives, from the male, the female, and also, as you've described, the systemic nature in which it exists. So thank you so much for being the kind of leaders who we need to really lead from the front. Because as you said, digital empowerment only really matters when women feel safe to show up. And it's so clear that you, as leaders within MTN, are looking at the situation systemically, whether it's from an employee experience, how we build our business, how we lead our goals in future, how we empower them so that they do feel safe and there's a space for them and our boys to speak up and lead. It's quite clear that you are putting together a program that looks at everything from infrastructure to culture to partnerships. And so as we mark 16 days of activism, thank you so much for your contribution to the cause. We're always mindful that all of this is really at the core of it to end violence, both offline and online. Your commitment is clear, and we're excited to see how MTN can transform the communities that our people are living in. And thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for choosing to lead with courage, empathy, and taking action together against what we see in our land. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.